Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. So I work as a waitress at a five-star hotel in Greece for the summer season, and I've heard tons of crazy demands over the years. This happened last season, around July of 2023, and it's not actually my story. It happened at the reception desk, and it got spread around. So in Greece, the last few years, the temperature in the summer can reach up to 40 degrees. We get a lot of tourists from northern countries that both love this weather, but is also way too hot. The week of the incident happened to be windy and raining lightly sometimes. There was this couple who low-key complained about it. When I happened to have them at my section of the restaurant, I would greet them good morning and they would always answer with a yeah, a cloudy one or not sunny through and things like that. It was only a few days later that I heard from a receptionist that they went up to the front desk and complained about the weather. According to her words, it went kind of like this. EM, entitled Men, EL, entitled Lady, RC, receptionist. RC, hello, how may I help you? EM, we have been here for 3 days and there is no sun. RC, yes, the weather is a bit cloudy those days, but it should be around 350s, 950s, today and tomorrow. EL, we came to Greece for the sun, so could you please do something about it? The lady was nice at first, unlike her husband, but that quickly got away when the receptionist looked confused about her request and offered them to use the indoors pool instead if they didn't like the weather. EM, no. We came for the sun, so fix it. EL, yeah, can't you turn it on or something? RC, I'm sorry, but we can't control the weather. EM, we paid to be in the sun, so if there is no sun, we want a refund. EL, yes, we want a refund and a room in the top floor to be closer to the sun when you fix it. The poor receptionist was dumbfounded at the time. I brushed out laughing when she told us about their requests. RC, I apologize, but we can't upgrade you to a suite at this moment as we are fully booked this week. EM, didn't you heard my wife? We want one of those rooms to be closer to the sun when you turn it on. The man pointed at the floor of the suites that had a private pool and obviously were more expensive. RC, I'm sorry, but an upgrade to a deluxe suite is not possible, and neither is changing the weather at will. She tried to be as polite as she could, but I don't think they got the hint. Good thing her colleague got their manager there to handle the situation. The couple was still mad no one would turn on the sun, as they said, but they stopped complaining when the manager offered them a free meal to one of our la carte restaurants as a compensation. In my opinion, they were really that stupid or just wanted to free stuff. To be honest, many people complain just to get free upgrades, etc. So we can't always know if they're serious or not. Hey all, I'm back with another crazy blast from the past from a big box smiley face store. This one happened back in 2000 when I was still just a young, naive kid that only dealt with maybe 2 or 3 entitled people. I had yet to develop the 1,000-yard stare or the hard shell that comes with working retail. So I'm working returns when a man about 30 or 35 years old leading an employee that is wheeling up a large entertainment center. This thing is fully assembled and has ornate wood details with a very lovely finish. In other words, something you wouldn't find at this kind of store. The man starts off very cordial with, I want my money back. I thought it would fit in my living room, but it's too small. I asked to see a receipt, or perhaps the box it came in. He had neither, so I called the manager of home furnishings to see if there was a similar one for a price and barcode, mainly because I doubt we sell anything like this. I asked the man if he'd like to have a seat while the manager checked for this entertainment center. Suddenly, thus man begins turning red as he raises his voice. Do I look like I need to sit down? Do you think I need to calm down? I respond politely, trying to de-escalate the situation. No, sir. I simply thought you might want to sit while you wait. I then smiled to help the next customer. His voice raised in pitch as he shouted, Are you laughing at me? It's not funny. I didn't respond as I attempted to help the customer in line, but it was hard not to find it funny that this man was angry about me doing my job. We are required to smile and greet customers. The manager of furnishings returns and explains that we have nothing similar to this item and asks him where he bought it. The man's voice raises in pitch again, about an octave above his original sentence. I bought it here. I demand to speak to the manager. So the home furnishings manager asks him to wait while I contact the floor manager to come speak with this man. Meanwhile, the man is ranting in an ever-increasingly higher pitch. Useless employees making me wait. Can't do their jobs at all. Why the hell are you smiling? The last part is directed at me. He now sounds like a boy that hasn't had a voice change yet, and I'm finding it super difficult not to laugh. My coworkers, being veterans of perpetual nonsense, are barely reacting at all. The other customers are trying hard to stifle their chuckles and avert their gazes. This doesn't help as the man has now reached a voice that sounds like an angry Mickey Mouse. Children are now stopping as they walk by with their parents, hoping to find why Mickey Mouse is shouting in the store. I'm now pretty red-faced, the customer I'm helping is out and out, guffawing, and this man looks like he's about to explode like an overinflated balloon. And he sounds like he's sucked down enough helium to do it. Thankfully, the manager appeared and settled the man down. He pulled him away from Val of the service desk. He returned to tell me to take a break and calm the heck down before returning to the irate customer. He was able to get the man to understand until he explained that we could not take it back without a receipt. The irate man growled at a similar pitch to a chihuahua before storming off, without his fancy entertainment center. I was told that I was not cut out for working the service desk and was demoted to cashier. It took almost a year to develop the thick skin I needed to work retail. And the entertainment center was silent auction for the workers to bid on, and the proceeds went to Children's Miracle Network. The children that benefit truly thank you, irate Mickey Mouse Man. Okay, so I'll start by saying this story is from about 5 years ago, and my therapist mentioned it in passing, as it was something I had spoken with her about years ago regarding my PTSD. I figured it's finally time to post this gem of a woman's story. It's around 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, and I'm sitting at home just getting ready to go to bed. I'm an on-call tow truck operator, and figure I'll be going out early the next morning. Right as my head hit the pillow, my Nexel-style two-way radio chirped and a dispatcher goes, "Hey up, are you still awake?" "Yeah, I'm up." "Good, we've got a one-car accident in the next town over. PD wants it expedited, so please hurry but be safe. 10-4, I'm out the door." After a roughly 20-minute drive, I'm headed out of this small town looking for the accident, and I see it. The coroner and forensics vans parked in the road amongst a dozen squad cars. A typical one-car accident has one officer sitting with it for paperwork reasons with the tow operator. Obviously, I know things just got a lot darker than I had originally been told. Sparing the gory details, what had happened was 6 kids between 17 and 20 had been in an SUV while driving drunk, and only the driver had a seatbelt on. The vehicle swerved off the road and the driver went correct, however, 1. He overcorrected, and 2. The road on that side had about an 8-inch lip, which made it extremely rough of a transition to pull a vehicle back on the road. As it came back on the road, the driver fishtailed, trying to correct back in the other direction, and again, overcorrecting. This sent the vehicle rolling down the road in and out of the 4-foot drainage ditch next to the road. All 5 passengers were ejected and died on the scene. One of the passengers was trapped under the SUV that came to a rest in the drainage ditch on its roof. The other passengers were strewn across the road with sheets over them. I set up my Peterbilt rollback at a 70-degree angle across this 2-lane road and start to work with forensics the coroner to remove the vehicle from the ditch, as well as preserve as much evidence as possible. No sooner than I get this winch tight on my truck do I hear frantic beeping of a car horn. I turn around and directly behind me is a woman who looks to be in her early 40s who is now just holding the horn down, letting it blare nonstop as she's yelling out of her window. I ignore her and turn around to go back to this delicate job. I'm in the middle of wondering how Karen had gotten past the police roadblock that was roughly a third of a mile up the road at the nearest intersection to keep traffic out of the area. As I'm slowing, maneuvering this 8,000 lb vehicle from the roof onto its side, the honking stops. Maybe 8 seconds later, I feel a hand grab my shoulder and attempt to spin me around. I'm 6'3", 280 pounds, so there is absolutely no way this 40-something 5'4", 160 lbs woman is achieving this goal. I let out a sigh as I stopped winching on the vehicle and looked at the sky with my eyes, asking every god I can think of for the strength to not headbutt this witch. I turn around and attempt to say, "Me, Mom, the road is closed due to a fatal accident." Karen, cutting me off, "I don't care what you have to say, just get out of my way, I'm late." Me, extremely annoyed now and talking over Karen's continued complaint. Listen to which 5 people just died here and there is absolutely no way anyone is driving down this road for hours. I suggest turning around and driving back through the police roadblock you somehow got around now. Karen, opening with that line that we've all heard 1,000 times. Excuse me. I live right there, points back behind her vehicle, and I have to use this road to get to where I'm going. You will move your truck now, or I'm calling the police? By this time, the forensics crew has heard all the yelling over the loudness of my truck idled up and the TO engaged and walked over. Forensics crews do not dress like police, especially in the middle of the night on the weekends. They're dressed in plain clothes but carrying a badge on them, and they'll put on a hazmat-style suit if needed. None were needed on this scene, just gloves and such. Karen, which one of you is the manager? This man won't move his goddamn truck and let me through. I'm calling the police. Is actually holding the phone to the side of her head and talking to what we would later find out was 911. Forensic officer. Ma'am, I am police and I don't know. Karen, I don't want to hear any more goddamn excuses. Move the damn truck now. Clapping between each word. Me. You dumb witch. Do your 2 remaining brain cells constantly compete for 3rd place? Forensics officer. Stifling a chuckle, ma'am. If you don't get in your car and leave this crime scene, now you will be arrested. Just as the FO finished saying this, a squad car came screaming down the road from the same direction Karen came from and stopped behind her vehicle. The officer hopped out of his car, and the very first words he said were Karen's Miranda rights. Karen screamed, kicked, swore that everyone else should be arrested, and even tried to spit on me, which caused her to catch a tampering with evidence charge, as we're on an active crime scene. By the time it was all done, her other charges were obstruction, assault on an officer, misuse of 911, interfering with an investigation. She took a deal that netted her 18 weekend in the county jail. However, I towed her car as well. Monday morning, I met her husband, and he couldn't have been more embarrassed as he apologized over and over as he paid me and then inspected the vehicle and signed off we didn't damage it. The impound cost roughly $600 as it was police initiated, after hours in storage. Charges were $150 impound, $50 after hours, $52 a day storage, and $5 a mile each direction from our office. Our office was roughly 17 miles from there. So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain as someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do almost all of the tasks. So this particular night, I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want overstock or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, ringtones, and some things like that, though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I'm in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I'm very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Sometimes people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I am pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing-impaired person, so when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. Since this was earlier than I normally began, there were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towels section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 feet tall, or 72 inches. She's very thin, probably mid-50s, and has frizzy blonde hair. This back in September of 2020, and of course she doesn't have a mask on. She begins to what I assume was yelling, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear her. According to the nice customer who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes. She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it violently, and it gets unsnapped from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and beginning to panic. I try to actually say I can't hear, but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My significant other says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the nice customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to the crazy Karen, asking what the problem was. This is all what he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. The nice customer looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down. I'm deaf, and I don't know why she's yelling at me. The customer turns to Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at a kid like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf, he's just ignoring me because he's a lazy piece of trash." This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of my two managers, the store manager and the district manager. The store manager walks up to me while the district manager walks to the customer and the Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. The store manager knows sign and asks me if I'm all right. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. My manager tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, the managers walked in with a police officer. The Karen had been arrested. The store manager explained to me in sign language that Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The nice customer stuck around and I wrote him a thank you note. The store manager also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful that awesome people like the nice customer and my two managers exist. Also, the Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it destroys her life. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. So, this just happened. I'm still shaking my head. For some context, I'm autistic and really don't handle confrontation well. However, I'm currently training my border collie, Storm, to be a psychiatric assistance animal. We're so very close to him being fully certified, but for the moment, our trainer and I organize passes for us to both go to buildings, planes, trains, etc., so I can expose him to different environments, sounds, smells, etc. Today, we were getting on a train to the city, 1 hour 15-min ride. We got on at the front next to the guard, showed him the approval letter stating Storm is in training, and all was good. We boarded, and Storm laid under my legs, taking up minimal room as per his training. We get to the first stop, and in comes Karen K. and her younger daughter, Karen Jr., KJ. They both sit on the other side of the aisle, next to me. After a few minutes, KJ notices Storm laying under my legs and says to K, "Mom, that man has a dog, can I pat it?" And she replies with something along the lines of "just ask," but I can't be 100 certain as I wasn't actively paying attention. Next thing I know, I hear "excuse me" from KJ and the following conversation ensues. "KJ, can I pat your dog?" Me, "No, sorry, he's currently training and can't be pet." KJ, "What do you mean he's training?" Me, "He's training to be an assistance animal, and it's very important that no one interferes with him." K, "Come back, sweetie. Unfortunately, some people don't know how to share." I tried to remain calm, but Storm instantly knew my anxiety was flaring up, so he got up and comforted me as he is trained to do. I reward him with a treat, a good boy, and finally the lay command, at which point the Karen approached us. "K, you should be teaching him to interact with children. My daughter just wanted to give him a pat, and you rewarding him for ignoring her is just plain rude." Me, "Excuse me. He's working and currently in training. I rewarded him for responding to me appropriately, not for ignoring your kid. Leave us alone, please." K, "You're lying. He's not a Labrador. They're the only dogs that are smart enough to become assistance animals. He looks like a border collie. They're just farm dogs, so quit lying." At this, my anxiety was starting to peak, and Storm got up and sat on my lap to comfort and calm me down. I reached for my treats pouch and began to get a treat out, when Karen reached in and took a treat before me, handing it to Storm. K, "Good boy." Me, Get away from me. I screamed and began crying. The train came to an unscheduled stop at the next station, and a group of police officers got on K and KJ were moved to the next carriage, and we continued on, with an officer staying with me until the next station. Fast forward to the end of the line and we got into the city, as I was talking to the guard, who had actually organized for the police to join us. KKJ saw us. KJ ran up to us, and just as I saw her hand reach out and down, I gave the Storm the command other side. He swiftly moved behind and to the left side, away from her. Me, I told you, no? KJ, my mom said I could, so let me. With that, she tried to pull his leash out of my hand. I dropped the lead and gave the Storm the command danger, to which he ran and sat under a seat in the middle of the platform. Karen then entered, pushing me on the shoulder, and by this stage my fight or flight response was the only thing in control, and I pushed her back, knocking her to the ground. More police were on the platform in what felt like seconds. I called for Storm as they arrived, handed them his paperwork, and told them everything that had happened. I'm now writing this from inside a police station while waiting to do a victim impact statement. Karen got arrested for assault and interfering with a service animal. Back in my college days in the late 90s, I worked in my college's Alumni Communications Center. In reality, it's a call center where college students work to ask the low-giving alumni for money. The college had professional folks to handle the big mega donors. I, luckily, wasn't a student caller, which seemed awful. I, a sophomore, was, and this was the official job title, data entry. A quick sidebar, we also had a couple of call coaches who were seniors who would monitor the callers and give them feedback on how to do a better job at asking alumni for money. Typically, donations in the $100 to $250 range. When callers made a call, they recorded the outcome of the call on a sheet of paper. I would then collect these sheets and then go to the sole computer in the call center and record the data. Most of the results I entered would be no answer or left message on a voice machine. Sometimes we got a donation. So I would enter that caller outcome into the computer and somewhere else. The alumni department would generate a donation envelope that was mailed to the alumnus, so the alumnus could then mail a check back to us. Now, about 10% of the donations would be by credit card. At the end of the night, after the callers left, I would spend about 30 minutes processing the credit cards through this dial-up credit card machine. I did this without issue for 2 months, September and October. Now enters Karen, the new boss lady over the call center. She finally notices the extra 30 minutes on my timesheet each day and asks me about it sometime in late October. I tell her that I process the credit cards after everyone leaves for the night. That's how I was trained by the previous data entry person. This upsets Karen, who says I am far too young to be handling credit card information. Makes clear that I am to stick to my job of only entering the caller's data. Period. End of story. Data entry only. No handling the money. The money is to be handled only by the grown-ups. To be perfectly clear, these were credit card numbers handwritten on a sheet of paper. Absolutely no cash money involved on my end. So you got it, condescending Karen. I stopped processing the credit card's donation. I set them in a pile at the end of the night, right by the credit card machine. And with each passing night, the pile grows and grows. November ends, and this pile is now 250 pages or so thick. It also wasn't my job to ask questions like who is processing the credit card sheets. Since the month ended and no credit cards were processed, Karen absolutely failed to hit her fundraising goal. She starts to berate the call coaches and the callers for not doing a good enough job. Karen starts spending more time in the call center, watching everything and everyone like a hawk. I continued to do exactly what I was told to do. One day, she would offer a prize, like a college hat, and then the next, a long lecture about how everyone shouldn't be lazy. Over the course of December, I keep adding to the pile of unprocessed credit cards. It's a good 500 pages thick by now. Compared to the massive piles of sheets of no answers and left a message, it's not very noticeable. Naturally, someone in the alumni department has noticed that the donations coming in are down about 25 over November and December. This results in me coming back from Christmas break where I get to meet Cool Chad, the new boss dude over the call center. He asks if my job includes processing credit cards. I told him Karen told me not to, but I was trained to process them. In fact, I'm the only one who has been trained how to process them. He says, "Cool, please do process the credit cards." Cool Chad asks if there are any unprocessed credit card sheets. Oh yeah, there are. Cool Chad then asked me if I could get this done over the next couple of weeks. Oh, sure. No problem. I spent several hours over a couple of Saturdays processing the credit cards. Cool Chad has the absolute best January ever in the history of the call center. Why is Cool Chad Cool Chad? In February, Cool Chad gave me a raise from $8 an hour to $10 an hour. Thanks, Cool Chad. I have to get some regular medications from the pharmacy, which involves using a script and waiting for the pharmacist to sort it out. Usually this will take about half an hour just because the pharmacy is always busy with other people's stuff as well. I also have to take hay fever medication every day and because I have to cycle through them. Some work better at different times of the year. I generally know a bit about the ones they have stocked at the pharmacy. The waiting area for prescription meds just so happens to be in front of the hay fever medication. I'm a naturally introverted person and will often avoid unnecessary social interaction, but I also like to be helpful where I can, especially if someone looks confused. This is one of those times, but it kind of dominoed me. So it was about 10 minutes into my wait when a 20-something man was looking at the hay fever medication with sheer bewilderment on his face. After a couple of minutes of his indecision, I stepped in to offer my help. Me, you seem lost. What are you after? Man, just like something for a runny nose. Me, is it an all-the-time thing or just occasionally? Man, it's just on and off. Me, I would recommend the Telfast since it's the cheapest and works best for snot. He looked at it for a couple seconds, shrugged, went on his way reading the box, and I thought it was a job well done and went back to waiting. Or so I thought. A second later, I get a hesitant tap on the shoulder. 20-something lady, excuse me, do you know which one I should use for everyday use? Me, well, it depends on what symptoms you're trying to get rid of. Snot, cough, sneezing, or itchiness. Lady, I guess mostly itchiness, but occasionally cough. Me, you could go with either Zyrtec or Nasonex. If it's mostly itchiness, I would recommend Nasonex as that works best for me. But if you don't like nasal spray, Zyrtec does well. Lady, I think I'll go with the Zyrtec. I've not done nasal spray before. Thank you. Me, not a problem. Looking around, I see a couple looking hopeful in my direction. With an internal sigh, I ask if they need help. Couple, you wouldn't happen to know where baby formula is? Me, not exactly. However, the baby stuff I've seen is in aisle 4. I think it would be about halfway down since I know those are tins of some sort. I've not paid any attention to know what's in the tins, though. Sorry. Couple. Okay, thank you. We'll start there. Thanks. And off they went. At this point, I didn't see anyone else looking like they were waiting for help, so I thought I was free to do more of my own waiting. Elderly lady who snuck up behind me like a ninja. Excuse me, sir, do you know where they keep the hay fever eye drops? I couldn't see them with any of the other hay fever stuff, and I heard you helping the other people, so. Me. Of course, they keep it in the eye aisle, which is fun to say, by the way. Do you need it for itchiness or dryness? Elderly ninja. Mostly for dryness, I guess. I never really thought of it. Me. Okay, I would recommend this one. Grabbing the blue package Vicine, it has a mild active ingredient for general allergies, but is focused on lubricating rather than just hay fever. You could get the stronger one gesturing to the red bottle, but I find it can dry the eyes a bit. Elderly ninja. Thank you so much. You know you're the only person that's been any help in this store. You should put in an application and then ask for a raise. And off she wandered into the shadows, chuckling at her own humor. Getting back to my waiting spot, I look at the clock, and it's only been about 20 minutes into my expected half-an-hour wait, so I settle back in. Pharmacist. What was your name? Me. Oh, it's my name. Pharmacist. Okay, give me a minute. Riffles through his papers for a second and then grabs my stuff. Thanks for helping. Here you go. Me. Oh, thanks. I wasn't expecting you to push me to the front of the queue. Pharmacist. And I wasn't expecting you to help half the customers in the store. And with that, I took my drugs and went home with a spent social battery. I know it's not a typical story you see on here, but I think it fits. Okay, first time posting here, and I never thought I would end up being a victim of entitled people until I met Karen. Yes, that's her real name. Funny, right? And she's the epitome of an entitled woman in her late 40s, with blonde hair and a piercing gaze that could intimidate anyone. She was the bane of my existence for an entire summer. It all started when I moved into a new neighborhood, and I met my neighbor, Tom. Tom was a friendly guy in his mid-30s, and we hit it off immediately. He invited me to a BBQ he was hosting, and I couldn't say no. The smell of grilled meat wafted through the air, and I could hear the laughter of children as they played games in the yard. I knew I was going to enjoy living in this neighborhood. That's when Karen showed up. She was wearing a sun hat and a sundress that looked like it cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her 2 kids, a boy and a girl, were running around the yard, and she was yelling at them to behave. Tom introduced us, and I could tell right away she wasn't thrilled to see me. "Hi, I'm Sarah," I said, holding out my hand. Karen took my hand and gave me a weak smile. "Nice to meet you?" I could feel the tension in the air, but I didn't think much of it. I mingled with the other guests, enjoying the food and the company. That's when Karen cornered me. "Listen, Sarah, I don't want to be rude, but I need you to keep your voice down. My kids are trying to sleep." I looked around, and the only noise was the sound of children laughing and playing. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not being loud." "Well, I can hear you, and I don't want my kids to wake up." I shrugged, not sure what to say. "Okay, I'll try to be quieter." Karen nodded and walked away, and I thought that was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. Over the next few weeks, Karen made it her mission to make my life a living hell. She complained about the noise my car made when I pulled into the driveway, the way I mowed my lawn, and the color of the flowers in my garden. She even called the police on me one night, claiming I was having a party and disturbing the peace. It was just me sitting on my couch watching TV. I tried to ignore her, but she was relentless. I asked Tom about her, and he told me that Karen had always been like this. She thought the neighborhood was her own property, and she didn't like anyone who didn't fit into her idea of what the perfect neighbor should be. I was at my wit's end when Karen knocked on my door one day. I opened it, ready for another round of complaints, but she surprised me. "Sarah, I wanted to apologize for the way I've been acting. I've been going through a rough time lately, and I took it out on you." I was taken aback. This was not what I expected. Okay, apology accepted." Karen smiled, and I thought maybe things would be better from now on. I was wrong again. The next day, I was having a small gathering of friends in my backyard. We were having a few drinks and listening to music when Karen stormed in. "I can't believe you'd be so rude as to have a party without inviting me." "Karen, this is just a small get, together with friends. It's not a party." "I don't care what you call it." Karen marched into my backyard, uninvited, and started looking around. She pointed at the food and drinks on the table. "And what's all this? You're having a party, and you didn't invite me? You should have told me, at least I'd tell you what to bring and what not to." She started pointing at the food and drinks in disgust. I was getting tired of her behavior. "Karen, you're not entitled to an invitation to my private gathering. Please leave." "Private gathering? This is a public disturbance. You're breaking the law." I knew she was trying to get under my skin, so I remained calm. "Karen, you're being ridiculous. If you don't leave, I will call the police." She looked stunned for a moment, then smirked. "Fine, call the police. I'll tell them how you're disturbing the peace." I picked up my phone and dialed 911, hoping the police would arrive soon. Karen stayed in my backyard yelling at me and my friends, making a scene. When the police finally arrived, she told them a bunch of lies about how we were making too much noise and how I was breaking the law. The police looked at her like she was crazy, and I could tell they were getting fed up with her. Finally, one of the officers turned to Karen. "Ma'am, we've had several complaints about your behavior lately. You need to stop harassing your neighbors or face legal consequences." Karen looked like she'd been slapped in the face, but I'm the victim here. "They're disturbing the peace." The officer shook his head. "No, ma'am, you're the one causing the disturbance. Please leave now or we'll be forced to arrest you." Karen grumbled and stormed off, muttering under her breath. My friends and I were relieved, but we knew that Karen wouldn't give up so easily. The next few weeks were relatively peaceful. I thought maybe Karen had finally realized that her entitled behavior wasn't getting her anywhere. But then one day, I came home to find a sign in my front yard that read, "No parking. Reserved for Karen only." I was furious. Who did she think she was, claiming public parking as her own? I called the police and they told me that Karen had no right to put up the sign, but they couldn't do anything unless she was caught in the act. That's when I hatched a plan. I knew Karen was obsessed with her car, a shiny red convertible that she loved to show off. So I decided to play dirty. I put up a sign in my front yard that read, "Parking for Sarah's friends only. All others will be towed." Sure enough, Karen fell right into my trap. She parked her car in my spot and strutted into her house, thinking she had won. But little did she know, I had called a tow truck to come and take her car away. When Karen came back outside, she was livid. "Where's my car?" "What have you done with it?" I tried to hide my smirk. "Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. I thought you knew. I had your car towed. You parked in my spot." Karen looked like she was going to explode. "How dare you? You had no right." I held up my hands. "Hey, you put up a sign claiming public parking as your own." "I thought I could do the same." Karen realized she had been outsmarted and stormed back into her house. She didn't come out for the rest of the day. From then on, Karen avoided me and my friend. She kept to herself and didn't cause any more problems. I guess she finally learned that entitlement doesn't get you anywhere in life. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.